Boom.
Welcome to The Backlash. I am your host, Rebecca Hargraves, joined as always by Mr. Dave Reilly. Welcome, Dave.
Hello. Welcome to myself.
You can find us over on X at Real Backlash, our website, thebacklash.net. Support us on subscribestar.com/thebacklash. I've heard that we're going to have some exclusive content over there soon. And patreon.com/thebacklash. Send your super chats that will be read live at the end of our show right here to my YouTube channel or at thebacklash.net/super chat. Sub to us on YouTube. That's at Real Backlash. Rumble, Backlash Podcast, Instagram, Real.Backlash, TikTok, at Backlash Pod. All of our links are thebacklash.net/subscribe. Thank you so much for joining us today. A big thanks to our sponsors, Above Time Coffee Roasters. Those are small, handcrafted batches of delicious coffee. Idaho Tallow, that is skincare without endocrine disruptors. And Antelope Hill, White Positive Publisher. Did we get all of that out of the way? I think we did.
I think we did.
Without further ado, our guest today, Constantin von Hoffmeister. He's a German author, poet, translator, editor, founder of Multipolar Press, and leading proponent of Eurosiberia, a vision of a sovereign European-Russian civilizational bloc. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Let's get right into it. So you're German, but you have lived in Russia and the U.S. How has this led to your holistic approach to conceptualizing world affairs and your understanding of multipolarity, which you've written about extensively on your Substack? You've written a book called Multipolarity. If you could give us a little introduction to your background, that'd be wonderful.
Well, I grew up in Germany until I was 15. Then I moved to the United States. I went to high school in Flagstaff, Arizona for 2 years. After that, I studied in New Hampshire for a year. And then I lived in New Orleans for 7 years, studying literature and political science. And while I was at the University of New Orleans, I got in touch with a lot of American nationalist types and sort of got interested in the nationalist scene because I thought the topic of identity was paramount. Identity meaning ethnic heritage, basically. Because ethnicity is basically what builds a culture. So culture is downstream from ethnicity. And this was sort of my mindset when I lived in New Orleans. And well, I guess it was like the late 90s, early 2000s. And I spent a lot of time in the library, university library, because I didn't have a computer at home doing research on this particular topic. And I came across a website. It was called the European American Student Union, run by Prefectus. It's a pseudonym. And I contacted the guy who ran the website because I found the pan-European approach very interesting, because I had really never heard of this approach before. Basically, the idea that Europeans are one large family and the nations, while valid constructs, at the same time artificial dividers, and we should focus on what unites Europeans rather than what divides them. So we should reject historical chauvinism and revanchism, so to speak. For example, a lot of German nationalists today, they want to redraw the borders. They say, for example, Poland stole some territory and we want it back. And this approach is very silly and completely counterproductive, because you can go back even further, and you can always find some sort of historical claim to sort of retake some territory, so it would never end. Basically, you just have to reach a point where you accept the reality as it is and accept the fact that these things happened due to historical circumstances, and now we should focus on our commonality and try to work together to overcome sort of the challenges that we as Europeans face. So in New Orleans, when I discovered this website, the European American Students Union, it was run by an American who now lives in the Czech Republic in Prague, but he basically outlined the same. He said that basically white Americans and Europeans are part of the same family, and white Americans should focus on the European heritage and the brotherhood that they share with the European brethren, so to speak. And it had like articles about the Bellamy salute that they had in the United States back then, and Francis Parker Yockey, Imperium, all that stuff. I know you mentioned Yockey. Actually, I was just watched the Backlash episode with Keith Woods earlier today, and when you mentioned Yockey. Anyway, so all of this was quite new to me, and I became very interested in it. And then also became friends with Norman Lowell. He's the founder of Imperium Europa, also wrote a book of the same name, which you can still order today on Arctos, on the Arctos website. And he lives in Malta, and he also has this idea of a great European empire from Dublin to Vladivostok, so to speak. There it is. Very nice. Well, I highly recommend the book. I even wrote the introduction to it about 20 years ago. So very nice. Our Motherland, Imperium Europa, I think was a title of my introduction. And anyway, so I got in touch with a webmaster of this website, European American Students Union. We became very good friends. I still know him. I'm still a very good friend of mine today, like over 20 years later, almost 25 years actually. I visited him many times in the US, in Prague, went on lots of trips together. So we share this vision basically, and he triggered it in me. And because of this, I did a lot of research at the university library, and I came across Alexander Dugin and his Eurasianist project and National Bolshevism, which sort of tied into the continental aspect of Greater Europe. And I became very interested in the idea that Russia is an integral part of Europe, because I think a lot of nationalists, especially from the West, United States or Western Europe, they sort of acknowledge that Russia is a part of Europe somewhat, but they never really fully acknowledge it. I mean, that's the sense I get. They always view it as something apart, sort of. And I guess Yockey and Jean Thiriart, the Belgian thinker, and various other intellectuals, they totally rejected this approach of viewing Russia as outside of Europe. They said it's an integral part of Europe, and Europe ends, in Lisbon. It starts in Lisbon and ends at the shore of the Pacific, in Russia, basically. And I was really fascinated by this idea that, because Russia is massive, of course. I mean, it has like 11 time zones, right? I mean, it's truly big. And I became really interested in this Eurasianist philosophy. And I was about to graduate anyway. I got my master's in political science at the University of New Orleans. And shortly before I graduated, I already had made the decision to move to Moscow, because I already had some friends there, to take a crash course in the Russian language and try to get in touch with Dugin and the Eurasianists, basically, sort of like a network. Well, and that's exactly what I did, right? So I left the United States, I moved to Moscow, I took like a 3-month Russian language course. I had an American friend in Moscow. He was a member of the National Alliance in the US, but he was also a fan of Dugin's, I guess. And he managed the English version of Dugin's website. That was in 2005 when I was in Moscow, by the way, so 20 years ago. And I became good friends with this guy. Like, we hung out together, and he introduced me to Dugin and the other Eurasianists. And so in 2005, Alexander Dugin, who is now quite famous, both in Russia and in the West. Like in Russia, he's a mainstream celebrity basically now, because he's on the most important TV channels, has a regular show, and writes regular editorials for like huge newspapers and websites. So, I mean, in the West as well, of course. I think a lot of it has to do with a tragic and a murder of his daughter, of course, that sort of put him on the map. But now he's like really famous. But in 2005, when I first met him, he was totally unknown, both in Russia and the West. Like, he was a real fringe figure. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he organized, Dugin told me that he wanted to organize a conference sort of like the founding conference of what he called the the founding conference of what he called the Eurasianist Union of Youth. And this conference was to take place in the town of Alexandrov, which is about 3 hours from Moscow. It also has a Kremlin, just like Moscow. And Ivan Grozny, or Ivan the Terrible, the Russian Tsar, he had moved his court from Moscow, Kremlin, to the Kremlin, Alexandrov. I forget the exact historical reasons for the move, but for a while, his court was in this other town. And Alexander Dugin wanted to have a conference in the throne room of this Kremlin, in front of Ivan the Terrible's throne, basically. Well, that's exactly what happened then, right? So he had a lot of illustrious Russian speakers. He himself spoke, of course. My American friend spoke, and I spoke because Dugin invited me because he wanted it to have a more international flair, I guess. And yeah, so I spoke in front of Ivan the Terrible's throne. In the background, they had put up a screen where they were playing the silent movie Ivan the Terrible, Ivan Grozny by Sergei Eisenstein, just to enhance the atmosphere, so to speak. And I remember the topic of my speech. The topic of my speech was basically like German-Russian friendship, and how Germans and Russians are basically soul connected, because you have Nietzsche and Dostoevsky, basically the same spirit. So they have the very, very similar mentality, Germans and Russians, especially the intellectuals. They've always understood each other. Like in the late 19th century, like Germany was full of Russian intellectuals hanging out in the spa towns, right, debating things. And especially Dostoevsky, he wrote like several of his novels while in Germany, gambling away his money in German casinos in various spa towns. And yeah, so I spoke about this, and also like events that transpired in the 20th century, like before World War I, you had the Rapallo Treaty, basically, where the Soviet Union and the German government were sort of secretly working together, sort of circumventing the Versailles Dictate, sort of real collaboration. And then, of course, you had the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact before Operation Barbarossa, where also like Stalin and Hitler sort of had a rapprochement, and they were working together. Of course, it all came to nothing because of the Nazi invasion of the Soviet Union, which destroyed everything basically. And after the war, like after World War II, well, you had the German Democratic Republic, which was, of course, first occupied by the Soviets, which was the Soviet-occupied territory. And then you had a renewed sort of friendship in East Germans and the Soviets. And in West Germany, you had sort of like new nationalist parties coming to the fore. Otto Ernst Rehmer, he was the guy who had Stauffenberg arrested, the guy who wanted to assassinate Hitler. So he had Stauffenberg arrested and executed, basically, but he also founded his own sort of nationalist party after World War II, the Sozialistische Reichspartei. Yeah, so the socialist imperial party, basically. And well, according to various documents and various sources, like the Kremlin, like the Soviet Union, sort of actively supported this party, not openly, of course, clandestinely. Because after World War II, Otto Ernst Rehmer, I mean, he was a staunch National Socialist in World War II, so opposed to the Soviet Union, anti-communist. But after World War II, he realized that the Soviet Union is a lesser enemy, basically, and actually can be an ally against the plutocratic West and the capitalist West, which is actually the true degenerate enemy of Europe. So the West as an enemy of Europe, therefore we should work together with the Soviet Union against the West. And I mean, various other thinkers had the same idea. Like you had the Belgian geopolitician Jean Thiriart. He also thought that a Euro-Soviet alliance could sort of realize this dream of a great European empire, basically, a true sovereign empire,
in several
especially
of your
Germany
essays,
and Russia together.
And your book, you've discussed Stalin's socialism in one country as a pivot towards national pluralism, rather than this universalist revolution. Do you see any contemporary leader, the Putin or Orbán, as able to successfully carry forward this same synthesis of national identity and social economics today?
Well, I think Putin is a good leader, and I think the Russian Federation, as it exists today, of course, is not perfect because nothing is perfect, but I think it is admirable in several respects because it is basically an empire, and Russia has always been an empire. Like you had the Russian Empire, then you had the Bolshevik Revolution, then you had the Soviet Union, which was also an empire. And now you have the Russian Federation, which is basically also an empire. But what makes it an empire? It's an empire because it's not just a state, but it's also a civilization. And if the state encompasses an entire civilization, it becomes a civilization state, which is basically just another term for empire. So you have different ethnicities and different religions living within the Russian Federation. But it's always been the case. So Russia has always been like multi-ethnic and multi-confessional. But I should point out, I think that the majority is still Slavic, like over 80%, and Orthodox. So the other ethnic groups and other religions are still a minority. But it's an imperial structure because it is basically ethnopluralist. So you have the imperial city, which is Moscow, and which is, of course, multicultural because people from all over the empire go there for business and opportunities. But you have these sort of autonomous regions within the Russian Federation, like Tatarstan or Chechnya or Buryatia, where people are free to live according to their traditions and their heritage and speak their language. So like Tatarstan, for example, like everything is bilingual in Tatarstan. If you go to the capital, Kazan, and all the street signs are in Tatar and Russian, and it's basically an autonomous republic that is majority Muslim, like Chechnya, basically. And in Chechnya, you have Kadyrov, and Kadyrov is a very strict Muslim, and I would even say almost like a radical Muslim. And some would argue that Chechnya is almost run like a caliphate, basically, within the Russian Federation. But I don't see it as problematic. I see it as a natural expression of the spirit of empire, because if you compare it to the Roman Empire, it was very similar, because in the Roman Empire, of course, you also had different tribes, ethnicities, different peoples living within its borders. Like you had the Germanics, you had the Jews, you had Judea, you had Germania, and lots of other peoples. And all of them were free to practice their religion. I mean, before the introduction of Christianity, like pagan Rome was very tolerant towards other religions, of course, and did not try to impose its religion on other peoples, neither on the Jews nor on the Germanics. And both were, I mean, all of the peoples were free to practice their customs, basically, and worship as they please. But the only condition that the Romans demanded was that these peoples pay their respect to the emperor. Yes, and well, most people did. The Jews in Judea, they didn't, and that's why you had the war between the Romans and the Jews, basically, because the Jews refused to obey the laws of the empire by proclaiming the emperor as a supreme head of the empire. I think that was the main trigger for the conflict. And you could compare this, I mean, this practice of letting the different regions live as they please to what's happening in the Russian Federation today, because like Kadyrov in Chechnya, even though he runs Chechnya almost like a caliphate, he is extremely loyal to the center, to Moscow, and especially to Putin, the ruler of the Russian Federation. And this is why it's tolerated what is going on in Chechnya, just like the Romans tolerated what went on in the different regions back then, if these regions were loyal to the center, which was Rome, of course.
Is this mentality transferable to nations like Germany, where there is much more of a strong history of ethno-nationalism and homogeneity and race? I've been reading your pieces in your Substack about East Germany and the AfD, and one of the pieces you wrote, East Germany and the AfD, that there's in East Germany there's discipline, frugality, and loyalty. And in West Germany, it's consumerism. So in everyday life, let's talk housing, youth culture, workplace. Where do you see Prussian and socialist values and virtues most clearly expressed? And how does Germany differ in terms of ethnic homogeneity from Russia and how one would reign over the territory?
So I suppose you're talking about Germany today, mm-hmm. right?
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, Germany today, I think it's divided in two. Like you have West Germany and then you have East Germany. Like the two different parts of Germany basically correspond to the post-World War II division when West Germany was occupied by the Western Allies, which is the United States, mainly the United States, Britain, France, well, you had Canadians, etc. So the Western Allies, mostly the Americans, carved up Western Europe, while the Soviet Union occupied East Germany. And out of these two occupation zones, first arose two separate nations. You had the Federal Republic of Germany, or West Germany, and you had the German Democratic Republic, which was East Germany. So West Germany, of course, was under the thumb of NATO, and East Germany was basically incorporated into the Warsaw Pact, which was the alliance of all the socialist states, including the Soviet Union. And I think today in Germany, especially if you look at voting patterns like the AfD, the Alternative for Germany, you can really, really see a really stark divide between the two halves. I mean, in West Germany, I think the average percentage for the AfD, I would say, is between, 10 and 20% maybe. And in East Germany, it's up to 40% or even higher, like 45 maybe. So it's more than double, right? The question is, and it's everywhere in East Germany like this, and it's equally everywhere low in West Germany. I mean, so it's extremely noticeable. But of course, there have to be reasons and sociological reasons for this. And well, in my opinion, the reason for this divide lies in this post-World War II partition, in the fact that West Germany was basically, first it was denazified, quote unquote, after 1945, which means that the German population was basically brainwashed into shedding its traditionalist skin and accepting like the liberal framework that the American, quote unquote, liberators brought. And I think it was very successfully done. I mean, now it's already been decades and decades since the end of World War II. And so West Germans have deeply internalized this sort of American Western spirit of liberalism, individualism, democracy, free market, capitalism. And they think it's like the only way. Any other way is not acceptable, right? According to the average West German mind today. In East Germany took a different course because it was first occupied by the Soviets and then incorporated into the socialist camp, so to speak. So they were not exposed to the capitalist degeneracy that West Germany was exposed to. Because people on the right today, they always like to talk about what they call cultural Marxism. In my opinion, it's a misnomer and it doesn't exist, right? Because Marx himself was rather conservative. Like, he would not have approved of these purple-haired weirdos or LGBTQ freaks or, transgender perverts. Obviously not. And I would say it's cultural capitalism, actually. But most people on the right don't want to admit it because they say that socialism is evil. And they equate the Soviet Union like with these Antifa morons that roam the streets of cities like Seattle today. which is completely wrong, because if you look at the history and the culture of the Soviet Union and the other socialist states in the 20th century, I mean, you can clearly see that they were extremely socially conservative. Like, homosexuality was basically banned after Stalin came to power. They would have never tolerated these pride parades.
No.
I mean, they focused on family, on folk culture, like fairy tales, myths, and legends. I mean, that was very, very important to them. And like in East Germany, like the example I gave in one of the essays that you read is that the East German government, the so-called communist government, even re-erected the statue of the Prussian leader Frederick the Great on the main street in East Berlin, because they felt affinity to Prussia, because they had the same ideals, basically, which is discipline, frugality, and loyalty to the fatherland, basically. And I think also it has something to do with Martin Luther, right?
Mm-hmm.
Martin Luther's break from Rome, because East Germany is also predominantly Protestant. So I think that also plays a role in it. And sort of East Germany was shielded from this Western obscenity, basically.
How much of the
for
rise of
almost
the
4
AfD
decades.
in East Germany has been solidified, or that this rootedness, this cultural regeneration in East Germany, how much of that has been created by the influx of migrants?
Sorry, you mean the culture in East Germany? How much?
No,
has been
I'm
influenced?
talking about the rise of the AfD. I mean, some of it is, of
okay,
course, the
right.
things
No, I
that
see
you
what you mean.
mentioned.
Right.
But I would imagine that
but
the
you have
immigration has
well,
been causal.
Yeah, but you know, I think that nationalists in East Germany were always much stronger than in West Germany, even before the AfD existed. Because before the AfD existed, you had the National Democratic Party of Germany, the NPD, which was, well, it was not as strong as the AfD is now, of course, but it was still noticeably stronger in East Germany than it was in the West, where it was almost non-existent, basically. But in East Germany, it was actually in several state parliaments, like in Saxony, for example, in Dresden. And back then I had a lot of friends from the NPD, and I often visited them in the parliament in Dresden, and even went to, like, I don't know, bars, restaurants, cafes. And even back then, I mean, that was before the rise of the AfD, you could speak very openly about certain topics, and nobody would harass you, or nobody would, I don't know, get offended and, you know, speak meanly to you because of it. The same, of course, was not the case in West Germany. In West Germany, you always have to watch what you say, because the general atmosphere is very oppressive towards any kind of, I don't know, nationalist or patriotic expression, if sincere nationalist or patriotic expression. I'm talking about not the fake liberal kind, obviously. So, and also in East Germany, like the number of immigrants is still lower than in West Germany, although unfortunately it is also increasing in East Germany right now. So I think, yes, of course, the immigrant crisis has a lot to do with it. But then the question is, like, because West Germany has way more immigrants than East Germany, why has the AfD not risen in a similar fashion in West Germany, if it's because of immigration only? I think immigration is only one of the factors, in my opinion.
Right. If the East continues to drift toward a political model that's more nationalist and socially conservative and skeptical of the liberal West, what do you think that would look like in practice? Let's say 10 years from now, I don't know, in terms of school curriculum, foreign policy, economics, whatever you can think of.
Well, it's a very difficult question, because, I mean, Germany is a republic, and I mean, you can gain power in certain states. I think in Thuringia, there's a very high chance that the AfD will gain a supermajority of almost 50%, or maybe over 50% in the next state election. And it might even possibly get a AfD minister to lead the state, Björn Höcke. And he wants to implement a lot of measures that the federal government, of course, doesn't like. And a rejection of fake refugees, for example, and certain cultural policies like stop funding theaters that openly promote, the gay agenda, for example. All of these are positive things if they were to be implemented, of course, and I'm all in favor of them. But the problem is, though, that the whole immigration process is decided on a federal level. So it's not like I think a state can unilaterally decide to reject immigrants altogether and pretty much do what it wants, because then you would end up like the Confederacy in the United States, right? Because they tried to do their own thing and look what happened. Mm-hmm. So, the federal government would not allow it. So it is problematic, but some people say, because you have this sort of nationalist or patriotic real renaissance in East Germany, and the AfD is also growing, although more slowly in West Germany, that sooner or later the AfD might gain complete power over Germany. I think it is a likely scenario, because right now, according to the latest polls, I think the AfD is leading right now at
You think this is a likely scenario?
Right?
You think this is a likely scenario?
It's likely. It's possible, right? It's possible, because right now the AfD is 27%, and Germany is a parliamentary system, so you have a lot more parties than you have in the United States, because the United States basically a two-party system, but in Germany you have a multi-party system. So 27% is very high for such a system, because Friedrich Merz, who is the Chancellor of Germany now, his party, the Christian Democratic Union, is only at 25% now in the polls. And so the AfD is 2% more. And so this means that if there were elections today, 27% would vote for the AfD. And the numbers are increasing almost on a daily basis, in favor of the AfD, because of all the promises that the German Chancellor is breaking, basically, because he made all these promises before he got elected, of course. Because before the election, the AfD said, well, you shouldn't trust the established parties, because all they do is lie, and they will never implement anything to change the situation regarding mass immigration, the energy crisis, the conflict in Ukraine, and so on. And of course, the Christian Democratic Union, they took a lot of the slogans from the AfD and made them their own, right? Because they wanted to steal votes away from the AfD, obviously. So they said, I remember Friedrich Merz said in one of his speeches before the election, a few days, I think, before the election, he said that on day one, when I am Chancellor, I will close all borders and no illegal will ever get in. Of course, that never happened, right?
Happened, of course.
Many other things didn't happen that he promised. But a lot of people believed him, right? And that's why a lot of people still voted for the CDU. But now, I think fewer and fewer people believe what the established parties are saying. And the trust in the establishment is crumbling in front of our very eyes more and more. Especially also, I would like to point out that the establishment media, which is, of course, linked to the government, and it's basically nothing but a propaganda machine for the established parties, is totally opposed to the AfD, openly so. You have the tax-funded television programs that propagate against the AfD. So the AfD was the second strongest party in the last election, but it has no power whatsoever in Germany because of the parliamentary system. Because the parliamentary system means that you have the CDU, the Christian Democratic Union, with, got about 20% or 22% in the last election, entered into coalitions with the socialists, the social democrats, the left-wing party, the Freedom Party, parties that have basically supposedly nothing in common, entered into a coalition just to make sure that the AfD stays out of the government. This is, of course, very undemocratic, but this is how the system works. And this is why the AfD needs much higher numbers, because the higher the percentage of voters for the AfD, the more difficult it will become for the establishment parties to enter into coalitions against the AfD, because they will lack the necessary majority in the end, and they will have to then enter into a coalition with the AfD. That is something they refuse to do. They say they call it the firewall, basically. I mean, even the German chancellor said, we will never break the firewall, which means we will never ever collaborate or work together with the AfD no matter what, because they're fascists and racists and you know, all the other names they call them, obviously. But I think the situation is changing because the AfD is growing stronger. And I think that is in large part also due to the power of social media, right? Because you have the tax-funded TV channels, but I think only boomers watch them, right? Like my father, for example, like he watches it, or older people, basically. They watch the regular television, but what kind of young person watches regular television? Like zero almost. I mean, I don't even watch I've stopped watching regular television 10, 20 years ago, right? I mean, I get all my news on social media, different websites, like everybody else. And because of this, the propaganda does not work anymore, like the system propaganda. It has become ineffective because it doesn't reach the young minds anymore. And this is why in the last elections or state elections, the only reason why the AfD didn't even score higher was because the boomers voted against the AfD, but all the young people voted for the AfD, or at least the majority of them. And I think, don't you have the same phenomenon in the United States with like more young people voted for Trump than old people?
Yeah, well, yes. And then the America First movement, I think, is largely a young person's movement.
Yeah, there's definitely like a huge split. And anybody under the age of 35 is viewed as a Nazi or a Groiper or whatever boogeyman that they have. It's like a perfect inversion of Mao's Cultural Revolution, which was like, it used to be like, don't trust anyone over 30. Now it's like, fucking kill everybody under the age of 35. They're Nazis.
Right.
But
we're having some in-stage growing pains because of the combination of immigration and capitalism. And so a lot of people on the right, even young people on the right, have a massive disdain to anything that resembles socialist policy in America, because we associate it with leftist hedonism and their dysfunctional set of ideologies. But in Germany and in Western Europe and in Russia, they have a much more nuanced perspective. So I had a few questions about this.
Hold on, before you go, I just want to point out that like we live in a fucking socialist country.
Yeah, I know.
Everything about American capitalism is socialist.
That's true. Yeah, it's a technocracy.
They privatize gains. They socialize losses. We learned this in 2008. We live in a socialist hellhole.
But
we are not in a capitalist country.
No. But staunch capitalism also has major
capitalism
problems.
also sucks.
Right.
Read Henrik Pesch's book, Ethics in the National Economy.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us need to develop a more nuanced perspective about this and not view people that are discussing socialism in Western Europe as though it's the same mentality as it is in America. It's definitely not. So Alain de Benoit, he's a French intellectual. I heard you talking about this.
What was that last name again?
Benoit. Benoit. I had to spell it out phonetically so I didn't screw it up. Is that what? It has a T. I don't know what to tell you. I heard you discuss this with Benjamin Boyce, but he said famously, one who criticizes capitalism while approving of immigration would do better to remain silent. One who criticizes immigration while remaining silent regarding capitalism should do the same. So if someone wanted to criticize both without falling into this hypocrisy, what would a coherent alternative framework actually look like? Would it be localist socialism or national conservatism with a protectionist flair, or a strong welfare state? What would this look like? And what real world example do you think comes closest?
Well, I think China comes closest. I think the Chinese model is very effective, and it obviously works because China is already in the future. I mean, if you look at the clips on X of what's actually happening in China, I mean, it seems like the West is decades behind in terms of technological progress that the Chinese are making. And it's definitely a socialist system for sure. And Germany is not a socialist country, it's a capitalist country. And I disagree. I don't think that the United States is a socialist country. It's definitely a capitalist country because you don't have free healthcare. I mean, real free healthcare like you had in the Soviet Union. You don't have free housing. You don't have free universities. So you don't have all the hallmarks of true socialism, basically. And the problem with capitalism in Germany is that, and in connection with immigration, is of course that large corporations or businesses, they welcome the influx of immigrants, whether skilled, unskilled, it doesn't matter to them. And it also doesn't matter to the capitalists that the majority or a large percentage of these immigrants don't work and basically live on welfare, because they don't have to pay for the welfare. Right. It's the government that pays for the welfare. The businesses only benefit from the ones that work because they can use them to drive down the wages. I mean, the same is happening in the US, right? I mean, with the immigrants from the South, like Mexico and South America. So you have these people working in I don't know, gardens, fields, kitchens, etc. And you don't pay taxes on them, and you pay them a pittance, basically. It's like modern day slavery, basically. And Trump is, of course, not serious about deporting them. I mean, in my opinion, it's all a big show.
Of course.
Because nobody today in the West, neither in Europe nor in the United States, is actually serious about deportations or what they call remigration. It's not happening anywhere, even though all of them, all these nationalists or patriotic leaders and politicians, they say they're going to do it before they come to power. I mean, Trump said it. I mean, you had all these like Trump rallies with people holding up the signs, mass deportations now. But where are the mass deportations? They're not happening. And I mean, you have some deportations, of course, with ICE making a big show, dragging out some cook from a Mexican restaurant in Los Angeles, you know, so for the masses, you know, like, look, we're doing something. But these are not mass deportations, because mass deportations means you have to deport literally thousands of people every single day.
Yes.
And this is not happening,
I think
right?
10,000 people a day is what we figured.
It's not happening, and it will never happen, in my opinion. And also because they're not serious, because, I mean, they're not punishing the businesses. Like, the businesses are not really punished, the businesses that hire illegals. I mean, they take the illegals out of the businesses. Maybe they deport them, but the businesses themselves, the owners of the businesses, they're not punished properly. There are no draconian punishments which should be in place, which tells me that they're not serious. And it's not like you have a border that is protected between the United States and Mexico, so you can kick them across the border and they can just walk down Mexican territory along the border 10 miles and cross over again. You know, who's going to stop them? I mean, the same is true in Germany and all the other European countries. I mean, there's no big fence around Germany, so you can never stop people coming in, because, I mean, they can just walk through the forest from other countries into Germany if they want to. And logistically, it's also very difficult if you talk about remigration or deportations, because how would you even do it, right? Because, I mean, you have millions of people from like Syria and Afghanistan in Germany. But how are you going to, I mean, even if you wanted to take them back to Syria or Afghanistan, how would you even do it? Like, you'd have to fly them basically to Afghanistan, like millions of people. How many planes would it take? Do you even have that many planes? How many flights per day? And then you have to ask the Syrian government if they even want them back. What if the Syrian government doesn't want them back? What are you going to do? Start a war with Syria so they take their own people back? I don't think that's going to happen. So it's completely unrealistic. And a lot of them already gained German citizenship, because I think like over 1 million Syrians since 2015 from the ones that came when Angela Merkel opened the borders are already German citizens. And obviously you can't deport German citizens. It just doesn't work.
I would be pro-war with Syria.
for that reason?
It's a purely capitalist ploy. So as long as you have capitalism, things will not change, because in the socialist countries, you did not have mass immigration because there was no incentive for them to migrate. I mean, China doesn't have it, I think, today, mass immigration. North Korea definitely doesn't have it. I mean, the German Democratic Republic didn't have it. The Soviet Union didn't have it. I mean, you had certain guest workers in East Germany, like I think a lot of Vietnamese came, but they were actually guest workers. Like they came to East Germany. A lot of them went to the universities. They studied. They did an internship maybe, but most of them actually went back to Africa or to Vietnam, where they came from, and they didn't stay, right? Because in the West, basically, they had the guest worker program in Germany, which was, I think, introduced in the 50s or 60s with the Turks that first came to Germany. They were also called guest workers, but they didn't stay guests. Obviously, they settled, and then most of them never went back to Turkey. So now we have the Turks in Germany. Already several generations. I mean, in my opinion, they're completely, most of them, the majority of them are completely integrated. And the young ones, actually, I would even say that they feel closer to German culture even than Turkish culture, or maybe even a mix. But they are definitely not out of place anymore because such a long time has passed.
Right. With reference to the Asian models, let's go back to that. So the most successful Asian countries, let's say Singapore, China, Korea, South Korea, Japan, they all share this cultural acceptance of hierarchy and collectivism. But Europeans and Americans, we are famously individualistic, even to our detriment.
To a fault.
Is any Asian model structurally transferable to any Western nation because of these innate differences within the ethnos of our respective cultures?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you think about the history of the West, the idea that the West is democratic, liberal, individualistic, it does not really hold true across centuries or even millennia, because for most of its existence, the West has been feudal, not democratic, has been completely hierarchical, and also sort of collective. Yes, if you think about events like the Crusades, for example, and the structure of the papacy in the Middle Ages, and the serfs that had to till the land, and the knights, basically the feudal lords that owned the land. I mean, that was the majority of Europe's history. I mean, this whole idea of individualism, democracy, and liberalism is fairly new, right? It's only the last couple of hundred years, basically. But thousands of years before that, it was completely autocratic and authoritarian and hierarchic. So I don't think it's alien to Europe at all. What is alien is this individual liberalism. This is what is truly alien, and this is what is poisoning, basically, the West. And this is why the West, with its ideology of individualism and liberalism, is basically the enemy of true Europeans.
But you don't believe that Asians are innately more collectivist than Europeans?
Well, that's true. Well, if you think about the Chinese, I would agree, right? They're definitely more collectivist. I mean, it's in their nature. All peoples are different, of course. I mean, just in terms of multipolarity, we respect the differences between the peoples. We don't want to make other peoples the same as us, right? I mean, when I say, for example, that North Korea is a great state, and I think it works very well, I don't mean that I would want to have the North Korean system imposed on Europe, because, as you said, it wouldn't work. Because I think it works for the Korean, I would say the Korean ethnic soul, so to speak, because it speaks to Confucianism, the spirit of community, of what is good for the whole. But as you said, in Europe, especially in Northern Europe, you always have this spirit of, I want to do my own thing, basically, right? And I am part of the whole, but I also have the Faustian spirit within me to always go further. That's why you had all the great explorers like Columbus, Armstrong on the moon, and now you have Elon Musk wanting to go to Mars. I mean, this is inherent in the Western spirit. But I think that does not mean that we need liberal democracy to foster this spirit. You can still have a collective society, in the sense you can have a society that is not necessarily democratic, a society that emphasizes community over the individual without trampling necessarily on the rights of individuals. And I think there are definitely examples in history where this has worked quite well.
Can you be more specific? What do you think is the best example of history that could be most easily adopted in today's Western nations?
No, I think a combination would be in order, right? I mean, if you look at, for example, the Holy Roman Empire in the Middle Ages, you had all these small states, basically. They were sort of semi-autonomous. They could do their own thing, but then you had the overarching structure with the emperor, basically, that united the whole into one spirit culture, so to speak. The same was the case in the Soviet Union, right? I mean, you had the communist or socialist system of government, but at the same time, it sort of fostered creativity, but without the profit motive. And I mean, because you hear the argument all the time, people say, like, in a socialist system, you can't be creative, you can't be a pioneer, and so on, but it's not true, right? Because, like, who was the first man in space? It was Yuri Gagarin, the Soviet citizen. I mean, they made great strides in science and exploration. And, well, the Americans went to the moon, supposedly. I'm not quite sure, right? I mean, that's debatable, I guess. So, I mean, you need a combination, basically. I would say a sort of corporatism, like the Chinese model, basically, where you have private initiative, but you don't have this completely free market capitalism. You have the key industries controlled by the state. So for national security reasons, and also for the welfare of the people. And while at the same time, you instill an ideology of cultural and pride in your own people, instead of constantly devaluing sort of like the founding stock. I mean, I think that's what's happening in Western Europe and also the United States, where basically the founders of the countries, when I'm talking about the colonies like the US or Australia, the founding stock is basically denigrated now by their own government.
Yes.
And completely disrespected in school, academia, entertainment, TV shows, movies, etc. And you can't do this, right? I mean, you can have a sort of multicultural society if you have a what is in German called the Reichsvolk, right? The imperial people, because all great empires in the past had it, right? I mean, you have Rome. Lots of different ethnicities, lots of different races, peoples, religions, etc. But the core people that held everything together were the Romans, right? And in the Mongol Empire, it was the Mongols. In the Ottoman Empire, it was the Ottomans. And in the Soviet Empire, it was the Russians. And in the Russian Federation today, it is also the Russians. But that does not mean that you have some sort of supremacism. It does not mean that the founding stock declares itself superior to the other peoples within the realm and wants to lord over them. They can be legally on the same level. I'm talking about the minorities, but they still have to respect the integrity of the whole by respecting the founding stock, the Reichsvolk, the imperial people, because these are the people that established the imperial culture, which is a model of the whole empire, while at the same time it still respects the differences of the cultural expressions that exist within the realm.
That sounds wonderful. I wish we lived. wish we lived in a nation that was able to do that.
Yeah, I think the U.S. was like this until
it was.
I would say until the 1980s, right? I mean, the U.S. was always implicitly, I mean, not explicitly, but implicitly, basically a white country that followed white ideals and white values.
By 1900,
America was an ethno-state until the Hart-Celler Act.
It was, yeah. And I think 80% of the country came from founding stock by the turn of the century.
Yeah.
We're coming up on an hour. I just had one more question, and then we have a listener question for you. So why do you focus on multipolarity? So what opportunities do you think it provides for our people, and what opportunities do you think that it affords mankind?
Well, it affords mankind different paths toward different solutions, of course, because the planet faces different problems. And according to the unipolar world order, the order which was imposed by the United States and the collective West on the planet, basically, is leading the world to ruin, basically. And I actually advocate what I call Darwinian multipolarity, because I'm quite realistic. Because a lot of people say, multipolarity should be a world where all the different nations, all the different states get along, and we should all work together. We should not make war on each other. We should love each other. We should have a brotherhood of different humans. Yeah, but it's like some hippie version that's completely unrealistic and silly, right? And it goes against the biological imperative, like the Darwinian principles, basically, which still hold true, no matter if you like them or not. So Darwinian multipolarity does not reject the Faustian impulse of the West, does not reject the drive towards domination that basically is inherent in every people. But it accepts the fact that now we simply don't have one single pole anymore. Because until recently, the United States was not just a superpower, it was a hyperpower. It means it was so powerful that literally no other state in the world could ever do anything against the US or counteract the US, so to speak. The US could basically act with impunity worldwide, and we all know that it did, right? But again, I'm not a moralist. I'm not saying it's bad what the US did, It did it because it could, and this is what happens in biology, right? If you have power, you're going to use it, and this is how it is. But today, we don't have the unipolar moment is over. Now we have a multipolar world. We have the United States, which is still a pole. It is a civilization state. It is an imperial structure, and it is a sovereign civilization because it has nuclear weapons. We have the Russian Federation. It's another pole. It's an empire with nuclear weapons. Same with China and India. So right now, I think we have 4 true civilization states, 4 true poles, all 4 of them encompassing an entire civilization, and all of them truly sovereign because they're in the possession of really powerful weapons that could destroy everything, basically. You don't have any other poles at the moment, like the Islamic world, for example, is not a pole. It is a civilization, Islam, but it is not a state, right? So it's not a civilization state. It's not an empire. Therefore, it is not sovereign. It is still controlled by the other poles. But now you have different poles, and it's very noticeable. So the US cannot act with impunity anymore. And a lot of people notice this even inside the US, like J.D. Vance, for example. He gave a speech at the Naval Academy in Annapolis a couple of months ago, where he even said, we have to basically, I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember his exact words, but he basically said that we as Americans now have to accept that the time is over when America was the most powerful country in the world. And Rubio said the same, that we now live in a multipolar world. I think Trump doesn't want to accept it, but he's inadvertently pushing the world towards more multipolarity through his actions, like the sanction regime, for example, right? So Russia is sanctioned like no country on earth has ever been sanctioned. And only because it acted against the interests of the United States and Western Europe, basically, because Western Europe also sanctioned Russia. But the whole idea of sanctions, what does that tell the global South and other civilizations? It basically just shows them that you cannot trust the West. you cannot invest in the West. You cannot make a deal with the West because they don't honor deals. They don't honor contracts. They don't honor your property. They don't honor your assets that you have in the West. So what sane country in the world would ever want to invest in the West again? Never, right? And Trump, by sanctioning more and more or punishing other countries for not towing the American line, is therefore pushing all these countries further and further away from the Western orbit. And that's, of course, a good thing, because the West is the principal enemy of mankind. I mean, the West, when I talk about the West, I don't mean the West as a country or a people, right? I mean the West as an ideology, as a principle. This is the enemy, basically. The idea that we're all the same, we should all believe the same, we should all live the same, we should all give women equal rights, we should all give every country gay parades, all that stuff. This is the West, and this is the enemy, and this has to be combated. And the multipolar world is basically burying this ideology.
I think that's why there is so much resistance to developing the attitude of a multipolar world, because it hurts our ego as Americans, especially to let go of this mentality that we've been raised with, that we're no longer the premier world power. But I think it is for the benefit of the world that we lose this status, because we wield that power in such a malevolent way historically.
Yeah,
we have. We are the enemy.
No. Of course, you're not the enemy.
Americans.
Oh, yes, we are. What are you talking about? I am the enemy
system, right? And I would say that even the average American benefits from multipolarity, because the average American does not benefit from globalism. He does not benefit from unipolarity. The only people that benefit from globalism and unipolarity are the elites that exploit the average American people. Like, how does the average American in the Midwest, for example, benefit from America attacking various countries in the Middle East, or spending literally trillions of dollars on a 20-year occupation of Afghanistan that resulted in bringing the same people back to power that they went into in the first place to oust, right? Like, how does the average American benefit from this?
No, I know. I totally agree.
It does not benefit from
but
this,
it fulfills prophecy, Constantin.
Yeah,
don't you know? It said so in the Bible.
Stop making us look bad.
God's chosen people. Sorry.
We do have an audience question for you if you're amenable to answering it. I think that we have one good audience question. We're trying to filter these through.
I'm asking them all. They're all over $10. Get your last minute super chats in.
Let's only ask him respectable questions. This is a respectable show.
I think that these are respectable questions.
All right.
Constantin, what is your best example of culture that stems from ethnicity? Have you ridden a horse? And can you give an example to destroy capitalism?
What does that mean?
I don't know.
I understand the horse question.
I talked to him, by the way, on the phone the other day. Yeah, Book Track Grooves. Thank you, by the way, Book Track Grooves, for like single-handedly propping the show up. So, I mean, I guess when you started, you were talking about the idea that culture is downstream of ethnicity. So if you have a good example of that, have you ridden a horse? Is this a yes or no question?
Well, I have ridden a horse. So it's, yeah.
There we go.
The example of, give an example of how culture is downstream from ethnicity. Well, it's obvious, because ethnicities found the cultures, and then you have outsiders coming in, integrating into a culture that was originally not theirs, right? I mean, it is very simple. I'm not denigrating immigrants per se. I'm just saying, as I said earlier, that the founding stock, like by definition, are the people that founded and established the culture, right? Everybody else that comes after, therefore, has to adopt a culture that was not originally theirs. So, I mean, if Indians come to the US, for example, I mean, they're from a completely different civilization, different culture than the American original founding stock culture, which is still alive in some respects. So the Indians, of course, have to adopt a culture that is alien to their own culture. And that's why it's downstream, right?
Yes.
I mean, from ethnicity. I think it's quite self-explanatory in my opinion.
Yeah, it should be. I want to go off on this because we had this little like parent-teacher conference at school.
Briefly.
And no, I'm not going to get into it now. I'll wait till later. Okay. But it's just very interesting because they were talking about culture and education, likening educating a child to like wine, and how there's a certain terroir with each grape, and the soil around it, you know, has its influence on the vines, and then whether or not there's rain, and all this type of stuff. But it's very interesting. But I mean, like at the same time, I feel like this also kind of invalidates the pan-Europeanism thing, because like Germans are not French, French are not Spain, right? They have a different language and they have different cultures. That's why I'm a petty nationalist.
Yeah, but I have to disagree though. It doesn't. The pan-European idea does not invalidate what you cherish as a nationalist. I think it even enhances it, because I think nationalism, according to the French model that came to the fore after the French Revolution, nationalism is a leveling force, basically, that destroys regional cultures and makes the regional cultures conform to the national culture. I think in an imperial structure, you always have an empire of regions which are much smaller than nations. So different regions and dialects are much more preserved and respected in an empire than in a nation, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I see that. I just also fucking hate the EU.
Everybody does.
You know what I mean? Book Track Groove sent $10. Constantine, what is the dating market like in the AFD? Do you believe women should go to college or get married first? It's a numbers game with voting. Persuasion works if people look for truth. So I guess
I'm not really familiar with the dating market because I'm happily married. But from maybe talking to other people, I think there are a lot of smart women in the AFD, and I watch their videos.
A couple of lesbians too.
Them on X. And whether they should first have children or go to university, I think it depends, right? I mean, because I think now the whole idea of going to university has become inflationary, in my opinion.
Yes.
I think too many people attend universities now. It's not even special anymore. Like it used to be a sort of like mark of distinction in the past.
No longer.
Like having a university degree, but not everybody has it. So what differentiates you from other people? What benefit does it really bring having a university degree today? So it's all about priorities. And I think it is the establishment and the government that has the responsibility to instill values in the populace that are congruent with the principles of what makes the people great. And right now we don't have this, because right now we have the emphasis on individualism, career, and going your own way, doing your own thing, focusing on yourself, self-improvement. When in reality, what we should have, a initiative top down, where people are basically told that what is truly important in life is legacy, heritage, which is not just individual, but collective, and not just in this time, but it's generational, because it's your ancestors and also your descendants. It is one long line, and this should be emphasized, that we're basically all in this together. And in order for this collective to become stronger, or at least stay stable, we need new members of this collective, and people should understand this implicitly. And in the past, they did. Unfortunately, it has been lost. But I think it's not too late, because it could easily be taught again, and people could easily follow it again. And if they did internalize it with proper gender roles, which also have been perverted, of course, I think some women, of course, would still go to university, and I would have no problem with it, because even in the past, even hundreds of years ago, certain women did, or certain women had careers, right? But of course, we would probably see a lot more women and a lot more children if we had the right value system installed.
Indeed. On that note, this was such a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I think it was enlightening to our audience and our exposure to multipolarity. Where can people find you and your works?
Well, I have two Substacks. I have my own Substack, which is Eurosiberia.net. On this Substack, I publish only my own writings, like one or two small essays per week on different topics pertaining to history, philosophy, politics, culture, literature, etc. And my second project is called multipolarpress.com. And on this Substack, I publish writings by a variety of authors from all over the world. And it's all about the idea of multipolarity that we discussed in this show. For example, we publish exclusive English translations of Dugin's articles that are published in Russian media, and also articles by authors from different continents, so not just Western authors, also Japanese authors, South American authors, Indian authors, Chinese authors. So, I mean, it is truly multipolar. And then I also founded my own publishing house, Multipolar Press, a few months ago. And I'm going to publish my first book with this publishing company called Multipolar Galaxy, Star Wars as a myth of civilization, basically. Will be the first book. It will be out. There it is, Multipolar Galaxy, Star Wars as a myth of civilizational rebirth. So, I mean, that book will be out probably in about a week or two, but I will definitely announce it on X. So please follow me on X. And yeah, I had previously written two books, Esoteric Trumpism, published by Arctos in January 2024, which looked at the phenomenon of Trumpism, not so much focused on Trump the man, but Trump the symbol, Trump as the historical instrument that basically created a movement that has now even become independent of the man. From a philosophical perspective, so the perspective Oswald Spengler, Heidegger, and Hegel, with the world spirit, various other thinkers. Then Arctos published another one of my books in January of this year called Multipolarity, ! In which I pretty much discuss in great detail what we discussed in the show today, also from different historical and philosophical angles. For example, I talk about Guillaume Faye and his idea of archaeofuturism and how it pertains to today's civilization states that have become more traditional, moving away from the Western monoculture, but at the same time being highly technologically advanced.
Well, thank you again. We hope to speak with you soon. Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much for having me. I greatly enjoyed it, and I wish you the same.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Awesome.
That was a great discussion.
A great interview. Now we get to brain rot and slop it up.
I know. I was gone. Like, no stupid super chats.
Speaking of stupid super chats, we got $10 from Yojimbo Rockford. Thanks to my North Idaho tallow soap, my endocrinologist is very impressed with how undisrupted my endocrines are. But for me, I'm impressed with how it's improved my racism.
Ah, very good.
Very good, yes. Of course, North Idaho Tallow Company is a premier sponsor of The Backlash. They make skin products, healthcare skin products for your face, for your armpits, soap, balm, lip balm. It's all very good stuff. You can get it at idahotallow.com. They also have a very nice Christmas gift box for this Christmas season. So if you're lazy and you don't like wrapping your own packages, they can do that for you at
You're
Idaho
doing a
Tallow.
terrible job of this ad.
This is the greatest ad we have ever read. But you get a 2-ounce tallow balm, a tallow soap, and a tallow lip balm for a friend or a loved one. If you would like to do that, it's $45. Great deal. And you can just get it sent directly to them, so you don't even have to touch it. I mean, it's gift giving for the lazy. It's wonderful. I love it. I hate giving gifts.
What?
Just figuring out what to get somebody
Giving
and then
gifts
wrapping
is one of the purest expressions of knowing somebody and love.
And that's why you should go to idahotallow.com.
You are
because everybody would love tallow soap. It's like a revolution in soap.
I'm sick of this male spurginess. My husband's like, if you want something for Christmas, well, first he said, do you think maybe I should like find something in my heart to give you for Christmas? And I was like, what a fucking revelation, buddy. Yes, I think you should do that. And then 2 days later, he's like, can you just send me what you want? I can't do it. Can you just send me what you want for Christmas?
What my wife and I do is we just go on Amazon and we just add things to the cart.
This needs to stop.
That way it's like I see what she wants, she sees what I want, and then we can just buy something that's already there. That's great.
That's terrible.
It's wonderful. No surprises.
Maybe my husband will put down our decrepit, incontinent, aggressive dog for Christmas for me.
The big thing I'm looking forward for Christmas is like I've been getting into pipe smoking recently, more than before.
Not crack, he's talking about.
Not crack cocaine, pipe tobacco. And I've got this really nice pipe that I got a few years ago, but you know, it's a pain in the ass because like when you want to set it down to like use your hands to spaghetti talk, you know, like because you don't always want to have.
Hey, you really reined in that spaghetti talk during that interview.
I did. But anyway, they have these little stands that you can put the pipe in. You put the pipe in a stand and it doesn't fall over and it keeps it level and burning properly.
What we're talking about for our Christmas presents, respectively, are me getting my dog that I hate put down and you getting a pipe stand. That's where we are in life.
Yes, that would be nice. We got a super chat from North Idaho Tallow Company who sent $10. You're retarded, but appreciate the plug, cow. Our gift boxes are new and make gift giving easy. We have a Christmas soap dropping soon too. The Christmas soap is going to be good. It's
going to be good.
I smelled it. It's amazing. Frankincense. I think it's going to be called like We Three Kings or something. But it's like frankincense and myrrh, so you can.
That's wonderful.
You can smell like a corpse. That's what that was for. Frankincense and myrrh were like herbs that were given to somebody to bury the
like
dead.
A corpse. idahotallow.com. We're going to get fired. We have 2 other sponsors. We're going to do a better
We're going to do better jobs with them. Absolutely. What else was going on? There was like so much that I wanted to talk about. And
I'm physically exhausted.
Why? Are you feeling better?
Yeah, a little bit.
Better than last
week.
week?
From trying to keep like a higher level of propriety for our guests. That like I'm actually exhausted.
Oh, okay. There is some interesting stuff going on, some housekeeping we got to talk about. There is a based and red-pilled anti-Semitic revolution happening right now in Mexico.
In Mexico,
young zillennials, Zoomers, millennials that are sick and tired of globalism have stormed the presidential palace in Mexico and been scrawling anti-Semitic
that's awesome.
graffiti all over the front.
Does that mean Jewish whore?
Jewish whore.
Oh, okay.
Puta Judía. And then, of course, you can see down here, there's this little Star of David with an X through it. And, you know, Gloria Scheinbaum, definitely.
How much is that edited?
One of the tribe. Look at that. Ooh, I don't think that's edited.
Okay, that's edited.
Oh, it's not.
This is going to be like the Charlie Kirk thing all over again.
His gums were small. He did have small gums.
He did.
So anyway, please pray for our neighbors to the south. You know, maybe if we get rid of the narco, leader of Mexico that's helping bring a bunch of people across the border, maybe that would be good. Maybe there's a way that we can like live next to Mexico and not necessarily in Mexico, because that's kind of what like Caldwell, Idaho feels like now. It's
Mexico?
Like, it feels like fucking Mexico. Ugh. Yeah, it's 30% Mexican down there. Another thing to keep on your radar is if you happen to live here in North Idaho or in the surrounding area, there is a big legislative town hall coming up this coming Saturday, November 22nd at 10 a.m. at the Altar Church. So if you would like to meet your representatives, your local GOP leaders, you can do that.
If you would like to shut up your podcast co-host for not interacting with local politics, I'm not going. I'm just joking.
You should go.
There's under no circumstances am I going to this.
Aw. Well, I'll be there.
I like to be an average citizen.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can be an average citizen and pay attention. It'll be very interesting because we've got, one more legislative session before we go to the primary. And so, I want things done. I want Bitcoin legislation. I want gold and silver legislation. So I'm going to hound them on that. And if you want to hound them on your pet issue, you can do that too. Not you. I'm talking to you.
Oh, okay. Good.
If you want to hound them on your pet issue, you can do that.
Oh, we have another super chat that came in.
The Altar Church this Saturday, the 22nd, 10 a.m. Put it on your calendar. I'll remind you on Wednesday.
Mr. Thunderstorm. $10. Individualism has never existed in human history. It's advertising for capitalism. Just the process of making linen harvest time requires. Did I read this correctly? Yes.
Linen?
Yes. Not linen. Linen.
Lenin.
Harvest time requires working together throughout history. Even reproduction requires two. Oh, and then it's cut off. Do you have the rest of this?
Which did it come through? Was it YouTube?
No. It came through something else. It's blue.
Blue.
So I'm really into Tudor history, and today I learned that everybody had to spin thread
Entropy.
Because it took 12 people to keep one weaver in business. And so even aristocrats, they were always spinning. And then unmarried women were always spinning. And that is why they were called spinsters.
Oh. Individualism has never existed in human history. It's advertising for capitalism. Just the process of making linen. Harvest time requires working together throughout history. Even reproduction requires two. That's all that there is.
Okay.
So if you were thinking that there was more, there isn't.
Requires two is the last that I got.
Requires two. That's the last I got.
Oh, okay. Well, we read it twice. Thunderstorm. Now send us another super chat with nothing so that it balances out.
What, 1 penny super chat?
No. Never mind.
Did you see this, by the way?
No.
This
Stop
Donald
making
Trump
me
clip?
watch stuff. Oh, wait, with the Nick Fuentes thing? Yes, and we're going to talk about it on Wednesday, so don't play it now.
Oh, why can't I play it now?
Fine. All right.
Read
We're
some great
gonna talk about
interviews
this
with Tucker Carlson, but you can't tell him who to interview. I mean, if he wants to interview Nick Fuentes, I don't know much about him, but if he wants to do it, get the word out. Let him, people have to decide. Ultimately, people have to decide. The mayor of New York, I will say, would like to meet with us and we'll work something out. But he would like to come to Washington and meet, and we'll work something out. We want to see everything work out well for New York.
You yourself had dinner with Nick Fuentes at Mar-a-Lago a few years ago. What role should he play in the conservative movement?
Well, I didn't know he was coming, and he was with, as you know, somebody, Kanye. And Kanye asked if he could have dinner, and he brought Nick. I didn't know Nick at the time. And he did. He came, and along with a few other people. He brought a few people with him. Meeting people, talking to people, like for somebody like Tucker, that's what they do. People are controversial. Some are, some aren't. I'm not controversial, so I like it that way.
What in the fuck? Dude, that was like disavowal adjacent.
That is the best quote. Meeting people, talking to people, this is what they do. This is what they do, meeting people,
am not
talking to people. I'm not controversial, and I like it like that. I mean, he's definitely getting old.
Oh, yeah.
There's something going on.
There's something going on.
But there's also something about this clip where you're like watching it, and it's like, what the fuck reality TV show planet do I live on?
It's totally
This
bizarre.
is amazing.
I like how people are trying to pinpoint what his health problems are. His health problem is being 80, okay?
And eating McDonald's 3 meals a day. I'm sorry. I like a nice Big Mac maybe once every 3 months.
Filet of fish for me.
Whoa.
I don't know what to tell you. It's a good fish sandwich.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Time out.
Every
Filet of fish?
I would say on an annual basis, I will get a filet of fish. Yeah.
Maybe during Lent.
I just like a good fish sandwich. It's
Bro,
a fine
what
fish
is up with
sandwich.
this?
An unsweet iced tea,
This is weird.
a filet of fish. Yeah.
I don't even
cod.
understand. Are you even white?
Yeah.
What's
Fish sandwich, that's like a very English thing.
Yeah. They're not crispy though.
They're crispy.
No, they're not.
They're good.
No, it's mushy.
You get a good
It's
fish sandwich
mushy.
from McDonald's.
Yeah, but they don't make good fish sandwiches. They make shitty fish
every
sandwiches.
10th McDonald's, so like once in a decade, I will get a delicious. This is not something I do frequently.
And it's like enough to just keep you on the hook. You keep trying it over.
To be
you
fair,
won't get another good sandwich for 10 years.
I never eat fast food. Whenever I'm in California, I'll go to In-N-Out Burger, but I almost never eat fast food. Road trips sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a problem with whenever I'm on the road, I'll eat McDonald's because it's like at least you're getting some nice human meat and it's well cooked.
You gotta get that human.
You gotta know what you're eating. You are what you eat.
It's people.
But yeah, I mean this dude, the Zionists are on suicide watch right now.
Oh yeah. Ben Shapiro is self-destructing. It's
I
hilarious.
would like to see Pastor Paul Van Noy and Stephanie Fetzer and Aaron Bernard and Lucky and all these people. I would like to see them disavow Donald Trump for not disavowing Tucker for doing an interview with Nick Fuentes. Because that's how this works.
I'm so checked out of this local politics thing, and then you just had to bring me back with this event.
We're just getting
local event.
The local politics is just getting started. We're just ramping up. We're gonna go hard.
I want it said. I want it on the record. That's what you say when you play clips that are totally not related to what we're talking about. I want it on the record. I don't give a shit about any of this local politics stuff. I want no part of this.
But you're gonna.
No, stop dragging me into this shit.
Listen.
I don't care.
Listen. The exploratory committee is reaching a verdict. That's all I can say. I can't say anything because nothing has been declared yet.
I feel like you're not listening to me.
I don't
care. I don't care about any of this.
I'm just letting you know.
It takes every ounce I have.
I'm just letting you know.
To just make this show. And then you're just trying to stretch me further, give more of my energy, my remaining youthful life source, which is limited into local politics that I don't care about. I don't care. Stop involving me.
I'm just saying that the polling from the exploratory committee is starting to look very good.
No, you're not doing this to me. You're not doing this to me. No. Yesterday he texted me. He's like, should I run for governor of Idaho? And I said, no, I don't. No, I need all of you, all of your ADD energies focused on production of the Backlash. Don't do this to me. Don't bring me into a campaign.
We need to make Idaho great again. I don't know what to tell you, but Brad Liberal, that's what I call him, Brad Liberal. His last name is Little, but I call him Brad Liberal.
I feel like you don't hate yourself as much as you should. Like Dave Reilly needs more self-hatred.
Let us know in the comments, or of course,
please
send
tell him
super
not
chats.
to do this. It's just going to divert your energies from the Backlash.
No. See, this is going to open it up. I'm going to go on Tim Pool, and I'm going to promote the Backlash from Tim Pool.
I will say that your delusions of grandeur have helped this podcast in myriad ways. So I don't want you to, in that part of yourself. I just want you to invest your delusional self into the show. Get me out of here.
It'll be good. All right, we've got a couple more sponsors to thank. Antelope Hill Publishing. They are fighting to keep history alive against a regime of anti-white censorship. They are equipping a new generation of dissidents with the information that they need to fight and win. Their varied catalog includes the newly updated and expanded third edition of Dr. Kevin MacDonald's Culture of Critique, the essential modern text on Jewish identity. Dr. Ricardo Duchesne's magnum opus, Greatness in Ruin, the definitive scholarly examination of European exceptionalism, as well as works by Kerry Bolton, Paul Kersey, and Josh Neal. Antelope Hill recently brought David Irving's iconic Nuremberg, The Last Battle back into print and have numerous translations of historical works from eras such as Fascist Italy, National Socialist Germany, Civil War Spain, and these are all previously unavailable in English. There are also plenty of books on contemporary issues such as transgenderism, the opioid crisis, and Christian nationalism, as well as history books, novels, and children's books. So whatever your interest is, you're bound to find books that you like at Antelope Hill, all professionally published and with sleek modern cover art. Help us and help our people by checking out companies that share our values and fight for our cause. Visit antelopehillpublishing.com.
Before we sign out, the most excellent interview with Cameron and Pete Quinones.
Oh, big
It was
time.
just interview crack. I'm listening to it. Although he did plug you and he didn't plug me.
What?
He's like, and my co-host on, no, Cameron. He's like, my co-host on the Backlash, Dave Reilly. And then he said it again. Like, what is this? Come on, Cameron, okay? I am the heart of the show.
And it's so funny, too, because like, whenever we're in our production meetings, it's just like, yeah, let's get rid of Dave on the thumbnails, get him out of here.
Yeah,
just Rebecca.
I know. And then he goes on Pete's show. I host a nationalist podcast, The Backlash, with Dave Reilly. I mean, he said that.
Like, you chopped liver?
I know.
Jeez, like, Cameron, come on.
But however, it was like interview crack. I enjoyed every single moment of it. Cameron is a humble man, and he is so shit at self-promotion.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's why I published this because Pete's on private, so you can't retweet Pete. We're not on private.
So check out at Real Backlash.
We got to bring Pete back on the show, by the way.
This was such a great interview.
I love and avow everything ever done by Pete Quinones and the Old Glory Club. How about that?
Why would you ever say that?
I don't know.
Why?
They're great.
I know, but everything
I don't think he's ever done anything that way.
Nothing could go wrong from saying something like that. Nice.
We also have to...
That's it.
No. We have to give a big shout out to Above Time Coffee Roasters. They are excellent, wonderful, the best, small batch, hand-roasted coffee that you can find on planet Earth, and they're pro-white. So please support them at abovetimecoffee.com, and you can use promo code Backlash10 and get 10% off your order. They've got a nice French press for sale if you want to up your coffee game a little bit in the morning. Get away from the, automated brew thing. What do they call Mr. Coffee?
Automated brew thing.
Yeah, ditch your Mr. Coffee.
Disavow your automated brew thing.
Get your French press. Get your Nordic blonde roast coffee over at Above Time Coffee Roasters. And also, what else do we got? Oh, I'm frozen now. Look at this.
We got nothing.
I've got to mention, gold's taking a little dippy doo today. Go to atlasbullion.com/backlash.
Let's see what Bitcoin's at.
Bitcoin is, it's dipping.
It's a little dip.
It's dipping. And I've been buying the dip, and then it's been dipping more. So then I bought the dip of the dip. Now I'm buying the dip of the dippity dip. If you want to buy some Bitcoin, we have a link on our website, thebacklash.net, under our affiliate section. Now would be a very good time to start loading up. Chart go up, chart go down.
I feel like you say load too much.
Load. It's the biggest load of Bitcoin I've ever seen in my life. But you can do that all with the affiliate links at thebacklash.net. There's all kinds of other fun and amazing things that you'll find under our affiliate links: gold and silver, soap and skincare, Antelope Hill. You can buy Bitcoin, Bitcoin hardware, Bitcoin mining, beef snacks, plus our book club.
I have to pee so bad.
And all of it helps support this show.
I drink a whole green tea during this. Let's round it out here, buddy.
After you.
This is The Backlash. We're going to have an excellent show on Wednesday. You can find us here. Follow us on Twitter at Real Backlash. All of our links are at thebacklash.net/subscribe. Is that right?
That's it.
I'll see you on Wednesday. I'll be having a better hair day. Bye, guys.